Pochettino has left Chelsea and a manager-sized hole. So, I'm going to fill it. Todd Boehly is no stranger to giving out really long contracts. So I've signed on for 10 seasons to try and get Chelsea back on top. We need to win 3 Champions Leagues, 5 Premier Leagues, and 15 total trophies for Todd to be happy. But given this Chelsea side have just finished 6th in the table, a whopping 28 points off the title, this is going to be incredibly difficult. And we've also got to battle the wheel of destiny that could make our life a lot easier or a lot harder. And in season 1, we can only sign free agents. So I guess Todd will be happy we aren't spending £1 billion this summer. But having put out what may well be my starting 11 into a rough shape, there aren't many free agents available that could improve the squad. But I have found one. Napoli's keeper Alex Maurice would be an instant upgrade on Sanchez and Petrovic. And talking to his agents, the contract demands look pretty reasonable. Obviously though, he asked for a little bit more money, but he is an upgrade, so we accepted. And he joins the club to be our first new signing of the rebuild. However, the first sale seems to be a little bit more tricky, as I tried to sell Romelu Lukaku, and that didn't go down well with the squad. So I said we had to get rid of him to help with financial fair play, and they acted like children, saying we know the reasons, we just don't like them. Be careful, Enzo, you will be next. Eventually though, both Madrid sides made bids for him, and he signed for Real Madrid in the end. We've also been busy sending our army of youngsters out on loan. We'll do this every season to help them develop into first team players. But in the meantime, we have the small matter of our opening day fixture against Man City. This season I want to try out a 3-4-3 formation, where I've told Sterling and Palmer to sit a lot narrower, which means that Chilwell and James get forward, we should look like we have a front 5. However, there genuinely wasn't a single highlight in the game, which actually I'm going to take as a win. If we can limit Man City to just 0.52 XG, then defensively, I think we've got things right. But going forwards, maybe we haven't. We drew 1-1 with Forest thanks to a penalty, relied on a Sterling header to draw 1-1 away at West Ham United, and another penalty to draw 2-2 with Newcastle, and then we lost 2-1 away to Arsenal. And so with the Europa League coming up that I really want to win, we need to adapt our tactics. So I've pushed Enzo Fernandez further forwards as a Segundo Volante, as well as asking him a team to work the ball into the box. And that seemed to help a lot, as we won our next game against Everton 1-0, continued winning as we beat Liverpool 2-1 at Stamford Bridge, and then carried on picking up important wins that helped us grow in confidence up to the halfway mark of the season. But it still wasn't enough, as we're only 8th in the table, just 2 points off the European spots. Thankfully though, the Europa League had gone to plan, as we won 6 out of our 8 games to end up 4th in the table, which sends us through to the round of 16 in March. In the meantime, we were finding our mojo in the league, as we won a majority of the games we played, and we're slowly starting to creep into the top 7, where we need to be this season. This got us ready for the Europa League knockouts, where we beat Sparta Prague 2-1 in Czechia, to take the advantage back to London, where we looked in control of the game from start to finish, winning 4-2 on the night and 6-3 on aggregates. However, in the quarterfinals, we lost the first leg against Rennes 1-0, but I know we'll bounce back in the second leg. Or maybe not, as a draw knocks us out of the competition. To make matters worse, our form in the Premier League had dropped off, as we've also been knocked out of both the FA Cup and League Cup. So to guarantee European football next season, we have to finish in 5th place, but seeing as we're 6 points adrift with 4 games to go, it looks impossible. Well, we gave it a good shot, as we won all 4 of our remaining games of the season, thanks to some terrific performances from the boys who wanted to salvage something from the season. But it wasn't enough to get ourselves any higher than 7th place. But thankfully, Liverpool won the FA Cup, and Man City won the League Cup, which means that 7th place is good enough for a Europa Conference League spot next season. But it hasn't been an ideal start to life here at Chelsea, so we need to have a better second season. Starting off with the wheel though, we have to sell our star player this summer, which is very frustrating. And unfortunately, our star player is Christopher Nkunku, who was the Premier League's second top scorer this past season, but to be fair, it could be a blessing in disguise, as selling him would really help with our transfer budget. However, the only club who wanted to make a bid was Liverpool, so we've been forced to sell him to a rival on the cheap for just 60 million. We also sold Ian Martson for £28 million to Nottingham Forest, which means we can make some big transfers. Khéphren Thuram arrives from Nice on a free transfer to bolster our midfield, but he's only going to be a squad player for now, as Davide Frateschi arrives for £47.5 million from Inter Milan to start in our new tactic. I don't think a back five worked particularly well, so we're going to a back four with Caicedo covering. But we offer more attacking threat with our wing-backs and centre mids who can support our replacement for Nkunku. Benjamin Šeško arrives for £78 million to take the reins in the attack. I am predicting some big things from this young man. He scored a brace on his debut as we beat Bournemouth 6-1 at home to get the season underway. He also helped us to a 3-1 win away from home against Aston Villa and got the first in a 4-1 win away at Crystal Palace. But it was actually Mykhailo Mudryk who was scoring the most goals for us this season, as he started ahead of Sterling on the left-hand side. Their combined goals put us third in the table, 2 points off the top spot at the halfway mark of the season. A massive improvement from last time out. And they've also helped us win every single league phase game in the Conference League, making us the favourites to lift the trophy at the end of the season. Incredibly, Raheem Sterling was now fighting his way back into the team in the second half of the season, and he was the man in form, scoring a majority of our goals over the Christmas and New Year period from the right-hand side of the pitch. And those important goals take us to the summit of the Premier League table by a single point with 10 games to go. But are we going to get distracted by the Europa Conference League knockouts? Well, in Bucharest, we could only draw 1-1 with FCSB, which wasn't the ideal scoreline for us. But an 8-0 win and 5 Šeško goals at our place certainly was the ideal scoreline. We comfortably beat Hearts at Stamford Bridge, including a goal from summer signing Khéphren Thuram to seal a 3-0 win, which made it 6-1 on aggregate with a win in Edinburgh. Then Sterling and Šeško got on the score sheet in a 5-1 win against Wolfsburg in Germany, which set us up nicely for the second leg, where we actually lost 2-1 but win the tie on aggregate. As a result, we're going to be playing against Sparta Prague in the final in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. But we have bigger fish to fry in the Premier League first. Thuram scored twice in a monumental 7-0 victory against Hull City, whilst Davide Frateschi scored in an important victory over Fulham. But most importantly, Benjamin Šeško's brace helped us to a 2-0 win over last season's champions Liverpool. That means with 3 games to go, we have a 4-point lead. Things didn't start well though, as against Manchester United, Badiashile scored an own goal to give the Reds the lead. But we fought back with a goal from Šeško, and then a winner from Frateschi to give us all 3 points. The issue is, Liverpool also won, keeping the gap at 4 points. So if we can beat Arsenal in the lunchtime kickoff in the penultimate game of the season, the title will be ours. But neither side were up for the game, with just one shot in the first 36 minutes, which is when Ben Chilwell was given a straight red card, but Reece James's free kick gave us a chance that was just headed over the crossbar, meaning we go into the break 0-0. Despite being down to 10 men, there wasn't a single highlight for either side in the second half, as we limited Arsenal to just 4 shots. So we don't lift the title yet. But if Liverpool don't win in their game tomorrow, then the title will be ours. The issue is, they did win. So it all comes down to the final day of the season, where we take on Norwich at home. Early doors, we were able to build through the middle of the pitch, but Reece James's shot was comfortably saved. But 10 minutes in, Mudryk's ball forward was cleared back to him, where he was able to find Enzo Fernandez in space, whose outrageous effort curled over the keeper's head into the top corner. And 8 minutes after that, we were able to double our lead from a back post corner to Badiashile. And the game felt wrapped up 26 minutes in, when no one could stop Thuram's mazy dribble into the 6-yard area to score. But to make sure of it, Šeško got on the end of Sterling's cross for his 33rd goal of the season. So at halftime, I made changes and calmed things down. The game felt won, and we had the European final to think about in a few days' time. Luckily for us though, the boys still did the business, as Parma's corner fell to Enzo, who made it 5. 10 minutes from time and Proteshi made it 6-0, meaning the engravers started writing our name on the trophy, and they just about finished writing Chelsea on it when the 7th goal went in. So in Season 2 we managed to win our first Premier League title, but Todd wants 5 league titles and 15 in total. So we need to make sure we beat Sparta Prague in the Conference League final. The game wasn't as easy as we thought it was going to be. The first chance only came 25 minutes in, as we built out from the back with a great run from Wes Fofana. When he couldn't get any further forward, he found Reece James, who saw an open Enzo, who walloped his shot past the keeper and into the back of the net. But it was the only chance Sparta Prague let us have in the first half. We didn't have another good chance until the 75th minute, when we worked the ball across the attacking third to Sterling, who was left completely open to hit home a second goal. As a result, Sparta Prague fell apart and gave away a penalty from a free kick, which Cole Palmer obviously put away to seal the victory and the club's first Conference League title. But we are still a long way from completing a 10-year rebuild. We have so much more to win. 6 players this season hit double-figure goals, which feels like an incredible achievement. But I don't think we can rely on that happening too often, so we need to do some good work this summer. But the wheel is spinning, and it's come back saying we have to now spin the wheel of leagues. Europe's top 10 leagues are spinning around, and in whichever league it lands on, we can only sign players from that league this season. And it ends up being Liga Portugal, which actually is pretty good. But we only have 49 million to spend, and that might not be enough for the top talents. So we boosted our funds by selling £80 million worth of players to then bring in just 2 players who actually could start in our first team. For his release fee clause of 56 million, Antonio Silva joins us from Benfica to challenge for a starting spot in our back line, whilst Nico Gonzalez's release fee clause was just 39 million pounds from Porto and will challenge Enzo Fernandez for the deep line playmaker spot. But it was Khéphren Thuram who was making the biggest impact in the midfield, as he was our top scorer in the early stages of the season, helping us defeat Manchester United and Norwich, whilst helping us earn a point at Brentford as they came to visit. But it wasn't long before Benjamin Šeško got back to scoring ways, quickly overtaking Thuram and had 12 goals to his name by the time Christmas came around. Even if his goals didn't win us every game, as Liverpool did the double over us this season, which means we are behind them by a single point in the tightest title race I have ever seen, as just 1 point splits first from 5th. But of course we're also back in the Champions League this season, and we opened things up with an incredible 5-1 demolition job against Barcelona, with 4 of our goals coming in the first 27 minutes. We also had an impressive 2-0 win over Borussia Dortmund when they came to London, and Mudryk helped us to a 4-1 win at home against Ajax. In fact, we didn't lose a single game in the league phase, only dropping points to Liverpool and Fenerbahce, which means we finish in 3rd place in the league phase and go straight through to the round of 16. Here we drew 2-2 in the first leg with Fenerbahce, but when they came to London we had to show them what we were really about. And this time we put 4 goals past the side from Istanbul to make it to the quarter-finals. Here Atletico Madrid were a lot harder to break down, but we just about won the first leg 1-0. However, Atleti came back and scored the only goal of the 90 minutes in Madrid, sending us to extra time, where thankfully Marc Cucurella levelled the scores on the night and sends us to the semi-finals. Here we have to face off against Real Madrid, and in London, Reece James gave us the lead just before turning provider for Šeško to score a second goal. But late in the game, Madrid pulled back what could be a very important goal. In the second leg, Vinny Jr. scored early on to make it 2-2 on aggregate. But we retook the lead through Nico Jackson. Madrid pulled it back from a corner though, so we replied with a corner of our own, as Šeško made it 4-3 on aggregate, but we couldn't hold on as Real scored in the 96th minute to bring the aggregate score back to 4-4, meaning we once again have to go to extra time. But thankfully for us, our main man Šeško was on hand to get the goal we needed to win the tie 5-4 on aggregate and reach the final. But we do have a chance to win even more trophies. That's because we've made it all the way to the FA Cup final, where we need to defeat Arsenal. And despite a couple of losses in the second half of the season, including a 1-0 defeat away at Arsenal, we now have a 1-point lead over the Gunners heading into the final game of the season. So all we need to do is beat West Ham away from home, and a second Premier League trophy will be ours. But the Gunners had other ideas, as they took the lead of their game 5 minutes in to at least temporarily climb above us in the table. So we responded as Moises Caicedo won the ball in midfield and made a run into the penalty area, squaring it to Enzo, who put us in front and back on top of the table. We had plenty of chances to double our lead, but the keeper and the woodwork kept denying us the opportunity. So we only had a slim lead at the break. But 24 seconds into the second half, we made a huge error at the back, giving the ball to Kudus, who punished us by scoring. So now we really need to score another goal to get ourselves back on top of the table. But whatever we did, we couldn't find the back of the net. And to make matters worse, Wes Fofana brought down his man on the edge of the area, and in the end, the VAR gave West Ham a penalty. But Mauricio pulled off a magnificent save to keep us in the game. With 10 minutes to go, we tried to push as many players forward as possible, and it was looking good as the ball was worked forwards towards Nico Gonzalez, but the keeper pulled off an incredible save. And in the end, it just wasn't enough. We draw and lose the title on the final day to Arsenal. But we can get revenge on the Gunners by beating them in the FA Cup final. 20 minutes into the game, we got the goal that gave us the lead as Reece James battled hard to find Sterling, who put the ball past Ederson. 10 minutes later, we thought we doubled our lead thanks to Šeško's headed effort, but he had strayed offside in the build-up. But not to worry, because in the second half, Khéphren Thuram went on a Maradona-like run to skip past defenders and finish low past the keeper to double our lead. However, Arsenal did find a way back into the game from a near-post corner, meaning we'd have to be at our best for the next 25 minutes if we wanted to win. And our best included a Mudryk goal to restore the 2-goal lead. And then a few minutes later from a throw-in, we worked the ball to the back post, where it was far too easy for Sterling to score past the keeper. So it might not be the Premier League title, but the FA Cup counts towards our total trophy haul, which is what we need to keep Todd happy. But he'll be even happier if we end up beating Liverpool in the Champions League final. But on a rainy night in Barcelona, not much was happening on the pitch, until the 36th minute, when Ben Chilwell delivered an inch-perfect cross onto the head of Šeško, who opened up the scoring. Liverpool tried the same at the other end of the pitch, but put their efforts just over the bar, meaning we hold on to a narrow lead at the break. But the second half was equally as dull. The first highlight didn't occur until the 77th minute, when we won the ball off Liverpool in the midfield and raced forwards, finding the pass to Šeško, who put his effort just wide. With 4 minutes to go, we gave the ball away cheaply, and Liverpool rushed forwards. Szoboszlai's cross was deflected by Fofana into the back of our own net. So now we have to go to extra time in the Champions League final, where there wasn't a single highlight, meaning it's now down to penalties. Cole Palmer was up first and just scored, but so did Mo Salah. Benjamin Šeško made it 2 from 2, but so did Darwin Núñez. Davide Frattesi looked confident and scored his penalty, but so did our former player, Christopher Nkunku. However, Reece James had his effort saved, and his rival right-back Trent scored. So now Nico Jackson has to score to keep us in the game, and he does. But if Endo scores, he wins Liverpool the Champions League. So after all of that, to come away with just the FA Cup, it hurts. We should have had more this season. Hopefully the wheel delivers some nice news for Season 4. It's not particularly helpful, that really. Now, we only have 3 players over 30 years old, but they're all key players. Sterling and Mauricio are ranked number 1 and 2 for the number of games played this past season, whilst Ben Chilwell is ranked 9th. So now we lose these 3 key players for nothing. Thankfully this summer we have been given £111 million to spend to try and replace them. I also sold Conor Gallagher, Trevor Chalobah and Datro Fofana for good money to try and get some extra funds together to sign new goalkeeper Noah Atubolu for £44.5 million from Freiburg, and then splash some serious cash, a whole £72 million on Alphonso Davies to replace Chilwell at left back. But finding a very good left winger for the money we had left over was almost impossible. So Mudryk will start on the left hand side for us, and I'll let a combination of Cole Palmer, Noni Madueke and Angelo fight for the backup spot on the wings, as none of them have developed as much as I would have hoped they would do. It's a shame really, they obviously just haven't subscribed to the channel, because everyone who hits that subscribe button is guaranteed to reach their potential ability. So basically, if you subscribe, you will win the Ballon d'Or, which is pretty impressive actually. Alphonso Davies made an immediate impact as he set up all 3 of Šeško's goals on the opening day of the season, whilst our new keeper kept a clean sheet in a 3-0 win over Newcastle. However, they were unable to prevent Man City from beating us 2-0, Villa snatching a late 2-1 win at our place, or both Fulham and Arsenal beating us by 1-0 as we seem to struggle without the experience of Sterling, Chilwell and Mauricio on the pitch. It means we sit 5 points off the pace at the halfway point of the season. Still plenty close enough to get back on top by the end of the season if we have a good run. In a similar fashion, we struggled in the Champions League, as PSG beat us 2-1. Lyon came to London and put 2 goals past us without reply, whilst Real Madrid scored a late winner in a 1-0 win. As a result, we only finish 11th in the league phase and have to go through an extra knockout round. Here, Alphonso Davies was sent off for a reckless challenge, but we still went on to beat Villarreal 1-0 in the first leg thanks to a Šeško goal. 3 goals in the second leg, where Angelo on the right wing played incredibly well, made sure we were going through to the round of 16 in style. Here we had PSG and we won the first leg 2-1, as all the goals were scored in the 85th, 88th and 89th minutes of the game. But in Paris, PSG won 4-3 on the night to take the game to penalties, where they won 5-3 and knock us out of Europe. And whilst we did improve in the Premier League, our big rivals Man City were just 1 step ahead of us all season. They won the title with 2 games to spare and then lost their last 2 games of the season, whereas we won, which makes the end result look a lot closer than it actually was. But we do have a chance of silverware once again, as we've made it to the FA Cup final. And this time it's Bournemouth who stand in our way. Early on, Fofana found Enzo as he worked the ball out to the left. Cucurella decided not to cross and took a shot instead that found the roof of the net. And before 8 minutes had even gone by, we were coming forwards again. This time down the right hand side, as Mudryk cushioned the ball down to Šeško, who smashed his shot home, doubling our lead. But the Cherries were strong enough to fight back, as Solanke was able to score a sweet volley from a cleared corner. So it was quite a relief when in the second half, we managed to restore the 2-goal lead from a corner of our own. Reece James was then denied by a super save from the keeper as he tipped the free kick over the bar, but Enzo Fernandez was able to score an absolute pile driver to make sure we won the game and lived our 2nd FA Cup. However, this season felt awful in comparison to last season, but we end up winning the exact same thing. It just goes to show how much of a missed opportunity last season really was. Nico Jackson did not score as many goals as we needed from him on the right hand side this season, and Šeško's numbers were also down. So maybe we need to sign some better attackers. But that might be difficult, as this season we can only sign English players, and given the English player tax, our £117 million might not go very far this season. But we spotted that Michael Olise has been transfer listed by Man City for just £31.5 million. And although he wants a fairly beefy contract, it felt too good to say no to. So Olise is very quickly signed up for next season. Sunderland made us pay £41.5 million for Joe McFarlane, who will play backup to Mudryk and maybe one day in the future take his spot in the starting lineup. And then, thanks to selling Noni Madueke and Leslie Ugochukwu for a combined £55 million, we spent that £55 million on Marios Konstantinou from Manchester United, who you might be able to tell from his name has Cypriot heritage but was born in England. Šeško is just slightly better, so it's going to be interesting to see which one of them comes out on top this season. Šeško started off with a hat-trick on the opening day, as we beat Brighton 5-1 at home, meaning Konstantinou was relegated to the bench. For now. But when I did give him a start against Norwich, he scored twice in an impressive 6-1 win over the Canaries. From this point on, the two strikers went toe-to-toe to try and cement themselves as our first choice striker. And the competition was incredibly good for our league standings, as we'd won 14 out of 19 games, drawing the other 5, meaning we sit comfortably on top of the table at the halfway mark of the season, totally unbeaten. This extended to the Champions League as well, where the only points dropped came from 1-1 draws against Rangers and Rennes, putting us third in the league phase table behind Inter Milan and Real Madrid. We also managed to lift the League Cup title as we beat Fulham 1-0 at Wembley thanks to Mudryk's effort from distance, adding another trophy to the cabinet. And thanks to an incredible winning streak in the league, we were completely untouchable, beating all our rivals, and we outpaced them all in the table. By the end of the season, we were a whopping 22 points ahead of second place, as we went totally unbeaten across all 38 games and had the league's top scorer in Benjamin Šeško. However, we did lose in the FA Cup quarter-final against Liverpool, which means the only trophy we have left to compete for is the Champions League. In the round of 16, Barcelona took the lead through Ansu Fati, but we equalised on the night to ensure we go back to London with the scores level. 2 early goals from Wes Fofana and Mykhailo Mudryk was enough for us to seal the victory and progress to the quarters. There were only 2 goals scored across both legs, and luckily for us, we scored both of them. Šeško won as the first leg, whilst Mudryk once again stepped up and won as the second leg. Now we had to face off against Inter Milan, who topped the league phase table, and we thought we were off to a flyer with 2 early goals. But Inter managed to pull one back 25 minutes in. However, we were able to use the home crowd to our advantage, and we scored a 3rd goal just before half-time, and then a 4th in the 90th minute to win the tie. We then controlled the game in Milan and punished Inter as they pushed for goals late on, by scoring twice in the final 10 minutes to win the semi-final 6-1 on aggregate and reach the final. But who is going to start up front? There really isn't much to choose from between Šeško and Konstantinou this season, but we're up against Real Madrid, and when that happens, we need experience. So I've decided to start Šeško, but Real Madrid have some incredible players, as they cut through our midfield, and Vinny Jr. fired home an incredible effort to take the lead. 90 seconds later, he was denied a 2nd goal by the woodwork. But when we let them have the exact same look moments later, this time he did score. But thankfully, he'd strayed into an offside position and the goal was disallowed. This allowed us to finally build some momentum in the game. Alphonso Davies found Mudryk, who decided to take it all on himself and somehow squeezed the ball past Courtois to level the scores. And we thought we'd taken the lead moments later, but somehow Šeško's shot was kept out by Thibaut Courtois. So with the scores level at the break, we need a strong second half. But we almost gifted Madrid a goal as our defence switched off from a free kick. From our own free kick, Olise almost scored, but put his effort just over the bar. However, with 25 minutes to go, Šeško wasn't doing much. So I took him off the pitch, as well as both wingers to get some fresh legs and pace up top. And it worked. Reece James found the head of Constantino from a corner, who headed us in front with just 10 minutes to play, which was just enough for us to hold on and win the first Champions League of the rebuild, following one of the greatest seasons of all time. But with 5 seasons to go, we're still a long way off the trophy haul we need to satisfy Todd Boehly. And we're going to have to run it back next season, as we've just been given a 1-year transfer embargo by the wheel. But if there was ever a time for this to come up, I guess now is the perfect time. This season, Constantino was getting the nod ahead of Šeško, and he repaid me by scoring the winner against Manchester United. He continued to tear up the league as we won game after game. But this season, we weren't going to go unbeaten, as we lost 2-1 at home against Brighton, 4-1 away at Liverpool, 2-1 over in Manchester against City, and 1-0 to Newcastle in the League Cup quarter-final. However, we still hold on to a slender lead at the top of the table halfway through the season. As for the Champions League, well, we also slipped up there as Bayern beat us 1-0, and Real Madrid got revenge for last season by also beating us 1-0 when they came to London. But we still managed to win 5 games in the league phase, which means we qualify for the round of 16 in 7th place. Which is good because a 2-0 loss in the FA Cup means we're down to just 2 winnable trophies this season. Thankfully, as we kept getting good results and adding plenty of wins to our tally for the season, other teams around us started to slip up, which propelled us into a league of our own. With 4 games to go, Michael Olise scored twice at Southampton in a 3-0 win that secured us back-to-back Premier League titles and our 3rd of the rebuild, eventually beating Liverpool by 11 points to the top spot. But back-to-back Champions Leagues would be even better. So we felt pretty confident when we demolished Barcelona in the round of 16 first leg, as Constantino scored a hat-trick in northeast Spain to give us the advantage. A 5-1 win in the second leg sees us through to the quarter-finals. PSG would be much more difficult though, as Phil Foden gave the Parisians the lead in London. But our boy Constantino came back and scored to level things on the night as we drew 1-1. Foden once again opened up the scoring in the second leg to give PSG the lead, but once again we clawed it back. This time through Šeško to take the game to extra time. And in the 120th minute of the game, an incredibly poor back pass allowed Constantino to give us the victory as the game was about to head to a penalty shootout. However, 8 minutes into the semi-final, Malo Gusto was rightfully sent off for a kung fu kick. But we weathered the storm and came away with a good 0-0 draw. But in the second leg, Atleti took the lead 25 minutes in through Danilo, and then doubled it 90 seconds later as we just couldn't get the ball off Cody Gakpo. Khéphren Thuram pulled one back for us just before half-time, but it wasn't enough. Atleti win and we are out of Europe. So we add a Premier League title to our cabinet this season, meaning we need to be almost perfect for our remaining 4 seasons. Constantino is now our undisputed number 1 striker, and although he doesn't score an outrageous number of goals, we get very good numbers from a lot of players around him. But there's always better players out there, so hopefully the wheel is going to help us. Or not, because we're going to have to give Todd Boehly the transfer reins for the upcoming season. So I've set Todd up to control our transfers, and let's see what he ends up doing. So he sold Nico Gonzalez and Andres Santos for a combined 96 million, which I'm not a huge fan of. Oh, and technically it counts towards last season's transfers, but he also let Nico Jackson go to Arsenal for 51 million. However, I think I might just forgive him, because he's brought in Jude Bellingham for £115 million from Real Madrid to replace the outgoing midfielders. Just a small salary of £550,000 per week. That's the Todd Boehly that we all know and love. But although he has signed one of the best players in the world, we do have a smaller squad than last season, which might make trying to battle on several fronts at the end of the season very difficult. It took a month for Jude to score his first Chelsea goal, but when he did, it was incredible. This then opened the floodgates, as he scored twice in our next game at home against Crystal Palace, and then twice again in our following game away at West Ham United, as our new man looked completely unstoppable. But it was actually Šeško who's the man scoring the most goals for us this season, as Constantino hadn't hit the ground running, which was a little bit of an issue. But not enough for us to worry about not winning the title this season, as by the halfway point of the season we have a 7-point lead. Now, we did suffer a shock defeat to Bodo Glimt in the Champions League phase as the Norwegians beat us 2-1 away from home. But we were able to win every game in the league phase to ensure we qualify second and go straight through to the round of 16. But before that, we'd made it to another League Cup final. This time we're against Manchester United. But after we took the lead in the first half, a stupid mistake gave the Red Devils a lifeline. But luckily for us, we regained composure and fought our way back into the lead, eventually winning 3-1 to lift a second League Cup title. And the goals Constantino scored spurred him on in the second half of the season, as he turned into an absolute machine, tearing apart the Premier League and overtaking both Bellingham and Šeško in the number of goals scored. And so unsurprisingly, we once again lifted the Premier League title above our heads to make it 3 in a row and 4 total, meaning we just need one more league title to make Todd happy. But we still need 2 more Champions Leagues, so if we can win it this season, that would be a huge weight off our shoulders. Real Sociedad weren't really much of a challenge, as we swept past the Spanish side 2-0 at their place, and when they came to London, Malo Gusto scored the only goal of the game to see us progress 3-0 on aggregate. Man City should have been a much more difficult side to face off against, but Bellingham and Šeško did the business in the first leg, as we demolished them 3-0 at Stamford Bridge, whilst a 1-1 draw in Manchester was exactly what we needed to progress. But Man City's big rivals, Man United, awaited us in the semi-finals, and it was Šeško who scored the only goal of the first leg to give us a slender lead. But when he scored twice in the second leg, we knew another final was upon us. Wes Fofana scored a third late on to comprehensively beat United 4-0 on aggregate. And it's another British team in the final. If we beat Liverpool, who beat us at this stage a few seasons ago, we'll claim our second Champions League title. But less than 10 minutes in, we gave the ball away cheaply and let Liverpool break forwards. But thankfully the crossbar came to our rescue and kept the scores level. So when we recomposed ourselves, we won the ball off Liverpool's poor pass out of defence, played it through to Constantino, whose shot took a big enough deflection to take it past the keeper and give us the lead. This gave us a lot of confidence, as Reece James found Elise in acres of space on the overlap, and all he had to do was find Jude in the middle, who wasn't going to miss. But not everyone can be as cool, calm and collected as Jude, as Mudryk put his shot out of the stadium. Just before half-time, Liverpool was stringing together some neat passes, but the eventual shot was weak and straight at the keeper. So at the half-time break, we hold on to a deserved 2-0 lead. But Liverpool's half-time team talk must have done well, as Konate of all people dribbled down the wing, swung in a cross, and Martinelli headed it home for Liverpool to get back in the game. But not to be outdone, 60 seconds later, Fofana found Bellingham, who quickly laid it off to Constantino, who restored the 2-goal lead. But to kill the game off, we needed another. So when Reece James advanced down the right-hand side of the pitch and put in a low cross, it seemed to confuse everyone and just roll into the back of the net. Liverpool weren't done though, as with 20 minutes to go, Matthias Tell and Darwin Núñez combined to find Szoboszlai in the middle, who scored Liverpool's second. But the comeback was too little too late, and once again Liverpool messed around at the back. Our high press won an interception for Jude Bellingham to score his second goal of the night and win us our second Champions League. Maybe Todd knows a thing or two about transfers that I don't, because I certainly would not have done that sort of business that he did in the summer. But saying that, he did let our backup keeper leave on a free transfer and didn't replace him. So all season, we only had one goalkeeper to play with, which actually was quite risky. So we don't need to win much more over the next 7 seasons, but the wheel could change everything, and it's not ideal. as we can only sign players aged 30 and over. I mean, we already have 8 players in our team that are 30 or older. But either way, we did sign a new backup keeper in Luis Jr. from Sporting in Portugal, and because we let Cucurella go at the end of his contract, we signed Joshua Wagnerman for £43.5 million, who can actually play at both left back and right back, so I think it's a pretty good move. But both players are backup players and won't feature much this season, so our starting lineup is actually unchanged. But for some reason it wasn't clicking this season, as we kept losing to all our title rivals such as Tottenham, Liverpool and Arsenal. And so for the first time in a long time, we're way off the title battle this season, as we're 14 points behind Liverpool at the halfway stage. Luckily, the Champions League was going much better for us as Šeško inflated his goal-scoring numbers as he scored 4 past Borussia Dortmund, whilst Jude Bellingham and Mykhailo Mudryk were happy to pick up goals in most of our other games. Our 6 wins from 8 matches was once again enough for us to finish in the top 8 and go through to the round of 16. But we lost 5-2 on aggregate to Napoli in the Champions League quarter-finals to lose our shot of winning a 3rd trophy in Europe's highest competition. However, something incredible was happening in the league, and we'd gone from a team who looked pretty rubbish to totally unstoppable, as both Šeško and Constantino were scoring as if their lives depended on it. And as a result, we clawed ourselves back from a 14-point deficit to be just 3 points behind Liverpool with 4 games to go and a game in hand. A 3-1 win over Aston Villa in that game in hand meant that we had climbed above Liverpool on goal difference, and as long as we just kept winning, the title would be ours. Thankfully, we also thrashed West Ham 5-1 to remain on top of the table with 2 games to go, but then we slipped up. Kobbie Mainoo scored first for Manchester United, and although we did score an equaliser in the second half, we couldn't do much more and ended up drawing the game. And then on the final day of the season, we drew 0-0 away at Southampton, which means Liverpool finish above us by a single point to win the Premier League title. But incredibly, we have another shot at a trophy, as we've also reached the FA Cup final and now have a chance to get revenge over Southampton for costing us a 5th league title. Straight from kickoff, we tried to assert ourselves and almost scored an incredible wonder goal. Southampton continued to defend as if their lives depended on it, as they put bodies on the line to stop shots. And actually, we had to rely on our keeper as well, as Todd Boehly made a terrific save from a Saints free kick that kept the scores level going into half-time. I was about to start celebrating an hour into the game when Mudryk was clean through on goal, but somehow he didn't hit the target. So instead, he decided to make amends by finding Joe McFarlane on the edge of the area, who gave us the lead. With 10 minutes to go, we continued to pile on the pressure, knowing a second goal would surely win us the match, but we just couldn't find the back of the net. But thankfully, neither could Southampton. So we end up winning the game 1-0 for our 12th total trophy. But with so many older players, we could now do with a few youngsters. And in one way, we've been lucky, because the wheel says we have to sign players 18 years old and younger. But with just 2 seasons left, for any of these 18-year-olds to have an impact, we basically have to find the next Wayne Rooney who's actually good enough to start in our team and contribute. And as you would expect, there aren't really many of those around. We were able to sign 18-year-old Ibrahim Diallo for just £8.75 million from Le Havre to become our new backup right back behind Wagnerman, as Reece James rejected a contract offer from us to go to Saudi Arabia on a free instead, as did Enzo Fernandez to go to Liverpool. So we also signed our Miche Chavez to fill Enzo's spot in the squad, as we bought him for £45 million from Las Palmas in Spain. And finally, Alex Fredericks joins us, who's going to be back up to Alphonso Davies for £35 million from Fulham. Diallo scored his first goal for the club in a 9-1 victory over Hull early in the season, where Constantino also scored 4 of our goals, as we look to get back on top of the Premier League table. To do that, we'd have to beat a lot of teams convincingly. So we thrashed Arsenal 5-0 at the Emirates, tore Brighton apart 7-0 when they came to London, And when West Ham made the short trip over the city to our place, we pumped them 6-0. This helped us to a remarkable plus 51 goal difference by the halfway mark of the season, where we're on top of the table by 4 points. We almost had a clean sweep of results in the Champions League, but Man United did beat us 2-1, which was enough for them to finish ahead of us in the league phase table. In the round of 16, we travelled to Turin to take on Juventus, and following goals from Constantino and Elise, we head back to London with a 2-goal advantage. Here there were goals from West Fofana and Constantino, as they both scored from corners to see us through to the quarterfinals. Bayern Munich awaited us, and in the first leg at home, we took the lead through Šeško. But 10 minutes into the second half, the Germans pulled one back. So luckily for us, the referee played advantage to let Elise get us back in front before Šeško's desire made sure he won his header to give us a 3-1 lead. I was concerned when Bayern scored first in Munich through Marcos Leonardo, but under pressure, our boys delivered, as they equalised on the night a few minutes later, before running away with the game and scoring 2 late goals to win the tie 6-2 on aggregate and once again reach the semi-finals. Here we were given a somewhat kind draw against Portuguese side Benfica, and playing away from home, we scored 4 times to ensure Benfica needed nothing short of a miracle to turn the game around in London. And to be fair, they did get me worried when they scored the first goal at Stamford Bridge. But our overall squad strength was just too much for the Portuguese, as we went on to score 3 of our own goals and make our 4th Champions League final, looking for our 3rd win. In the meantime, Šeško had been running riot in the Premier League, scoring past pretty much everyone to help us go unbeaten in the league for the second half of the season, which can only mean one thing. We lift our 5th Premier League trophy by beating Liverpool to the title by 13 points to complete 1/3 of Todd Boehly's demands. And if we can beat Real Madrid in the Champions League final, we'll win the 3rd Champions League trophy that he so desperately wants. But disaster struck 11 minutes in when Joe McFarlane was forced off with an injury, meaning Mudryk would take his place. And the rest of the first half was going by without a single highlight. But in the 3rd minute of added time, we were given a free kick. It was played short to Alphonso Davies, who found Bellingham, who then sent it back to Davies. But he spotted the substitute Mudryk in space, who turned to face goal and gives us the lead right before the halftime whistle gets blown. Mudryk wanted to double his goal tally, and he did come close when his free kick was pushed wide by the keeper. He then almost turned provider, as his corner was met by the head of Levi Colville, who just put it over the crossbar. Real Madrid never had a highlight in their favour in the match. They just didn't turn up. So by the end of 90 minutes, Mudryk's goal off the bench sealed the victory and wins us our 3rd Champions League, ticking off challenge number 2. Now we just need to win 1 more trophy in season 10 and we'll have completed all 3. We have been super lucky at the end, as the wheel says we can double our transfer budget up to a whopping £243 million. And I know the perfect player to spend the money on. We've brought Jamal Musiala back to Chelsea after they sold him to Bayern Munich in 2019. The issue is, we had to pay £177 million for the pleasure. But that is the Chelsea way. He made an instant impact on his debut, scoring 3 minutes in against Crystal Palace, and then got a second in the 18th minute on our way to a 5-1 victory. But of course, it was Marius Constantino who was our main danger man, as he scored a hat-trick away at Man City in an incredible 5-0 win. Let's not forget Šeško though, who was also playing his part as we continue to rack up the wins in the Premier League. Once again, at the halfway mark of the season, we were top of the pile with a 5-point gap and a game in hand over second place Liverpool. However, a 2-0 loss to Newcastle in the League Cup quarter-final shuts the door on us winning that competition for this season, narrowing our options for our 15th trophy. And another door was closed when we lost to Manchester United in the FA Cup quarter-final, as they scored in the last few moments of extra time to win. And then we got completely battered by Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League quarter-finals as they scored 5 goals past us to rule us out of winning a 4th Champions League. So it all comes down to the Premier League, where thankfully we were able to beat our title rivals, such as Manchester United, Liverpool, and surprisingly, Sunderland and Watford. All this means is that with 4 games to go, we're now 1 win away from clinching the all-important Premier League title and our 15th trophy. All we have to do is beat 18th place Fulham, who are 10 points from safety, and the challenge is complete. And less than a minute into the game, we had a chance as the ball was played out to our left back Fredericks, who crossed the ball to Šeško, who couldn't score, but the rebound fell to Joe McFarlane, who gave us the lead. However, Fulham had to win to have a chance of saving themselves from relegation this season, and they fought hard, eventually equalising just before the half-hour mark. We had more chances as the game went on, but we just didn't have the clinical edge we needed to score another goal, meaning we were heading towards half-time, drawing. But in the 40th minute, Fulham brought down McFarlane in the penalty area, giving us a free shot at goal, which ended up being saved by the keeper. It just feels like it's not going to be our day. So after throwing the water bottle in the changing rooms at half-time, the boys decided to respond by protecting the ball after a cleared corner. Musiala then found McFarlane in the penalty area, who smashed his shot into the back of the net to give us back the lead. Another goal would surely seal the win for us, but once again we just couldn't break down the Fulham defence or get a decent shot away on goal. But in the final few minutes of the game, we managed to break down Fulham as Diallo put a perfect cross onto the head of Musiala, who made it 3-1. That was enough for us to win the game and clinch our 15th trophy of the rebuild to complete all 3 challenges. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. And then watch this video where I rebuild Manchester United over 10 seasons using 3 core youngsters as the pillars to build around. Can we do better there than we did here with Chelsea?